Okay, here we go. This will be video 3 for section 6.2. I think we're just going to do one example here. It's kind of a long example, so we'll get started here. So I'm going to write this down. We're gonna integrate this. Okay, so we're going to integrate x squared times e to the x. Now this looks very similar to the last example. Let me flip to it real quick. Yeah, this is the last example. It's just x times e to the x. But this one's going to be a little bit more involved because of that squared. You guys will see that as we go through it. Okay. So, just to kind of review here, integration by parts, anti-differentiation by parts. There's a formula for it. I'll write that down in a second. But see if you guys can try to memorize that formula. But what we do is we always look for, what do we let u equal? Okay, we're going to let u equal something. So if you remember the mnemonic device, the way to remember this is LIPET, L-I-P-E-T. So L stands for logarithms. Do we have any of those? Nope. I stands for inverse trig. Do we have any of those? Nope. And P stands for polynomial functions. Do we have a polynomial? The answer is yes, x squared. So we're going to let x squared equal u. Okay, and so everything else, let's let that be dv. So that whole thing will be dv. Alright, so this will be e to the x dx. Okay, so before we use this formula, what we're going to need to do is find du and also v. Okay, so what is du going to be? Well, it's the derivative of u, which is, if I take the derivative of x squared, it's going to give me 2x. But then it's going to be times dx. Okay, remember there's a shortcut there. Again, you could write it as du over dx is equal to 2x, and then solve for du, so you get 2x dx. Okay, now we want to find v. Now remember, v is the antiderivative of dv. Okay, so this is the derivative of v right here. So if I want to go backwards, I've got to take the antiderivative. So what is the antiderivative of e to the x? Answer, e to the x. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the other one. You could put a plus c here if you wanted to, but just know that when we actually take the integral again, we're gonna have a plus c. We're gonna have some constant no matter what, so you don't have to put a plus c here. All right, so here we go. Let's use the formula. So let me write the formula down. If you keep writing it, it'll help you memorize it. So the integral of u dv is going to equal uv minus the integral of v du. Remember voodoo, v du. All right, so there we go. Okay, so our integral that we want to find is of x squared. Then was it times e to the x dx. So again, just to kind of mention, this is u and this is dv. Okay. X squared is u, and e to the x dx is dv. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Here, why don't I use a different color here, green. So it's going to be u times v. Well, we know u is x squared. But let me go back to see what v is. V is e to the x. Okay, so let's fill that in. E to the x. Minus the integral of v du. Okay, so we know v is e to the x. Whoops. V is e to the x. And du, though, it's a little bit different this time. Du is going to be 2x dx. So it's going to be e to the x times 2x dx. Now, just to make this a little bit easier, before we integrate this thing, anytime we have a constant, we can write it out off to the side here. Okay, we can just multiply by that constant outside the integral. So this is going to be x squared e to the x. I'm not doing anything here. I'm just writing the 2 out here. So this is going to be the integral. Now, I'm also going to change the order here. Instead of writing it as e to the x times x dx, let's just write it as x times e to the x dx. Okay. So guys, before we integrate this, notice I've got another issue. I've got an issue here. It looks like we're going to have to do integration by parts again. So that's why this one's a little bit longer. We're going to have to do integration by parts again because we've got two things being multiplied. So we've got to try to integrate that thing now. Well, what I was going to do is just just do that again. But why don't we just use the problem we did in the last video, just to make it quicker. So we did that exact problem in the last video. So why don't we just use the answer from it? That'll be a lot easier. I don't know why I have this circle. Let me get rid of that. But that's what we found the answer to be. X times e to the x minus e to the x plus c. So this problem's going to be a little bit shorter than I thought because we've already done this, all right? Just to save us from doing this whole process over again. We already know what that is. So if you need to look back at how we did that, go ahead in the previous video. But that should be good there. All right, so let me write that in. This is going to equal x squared e to the x minus 2. And then we already found that. Let me go back to it. X times e to the x minus e to the x plus c. Okay. There we go. And we're almost there. So I'm just going to distribute this negative 2 through now. And guys, when I multiply negative 2 times a c, that's still going to be a constant. I don't know what that constant is, but it's still going to be a constant. So we'll leave it as plus c. Or you can put minus c, it's no big deal. So it's going to be minus 2x e to the x. I'm just distributing my negative 2 right here. So negative 2 times x e to the x is going to be negative 2x e to the x. Negative 2 times e to the x, times negative e to the x is positive 2 e to the x. And then negative 2 times c is c. Okay, so that right there is my answer. Now remember, we could, all these terms have something in common. So another way you could write it is just to factor out an e to the x. So if we did that, what would we be left with in this term? Well, x squared. What would we be left with in this term? Negative 2x. And what would we be left with in this term? A positive 2. And then we'll have that plus c out there as well. Okay, so that right there is my answer. Again, I could have circled this as well. Either one of those would work. If you want to factor out the e to the x, you can. All right, so that right there is my answer. Now, I want to check the answer. So like we've been doing these last few videos, you don't have to check it every single time. I'm just trying to show you why it works. Okay, how we know we got the right answer. So let's do a check. And remember, the way to always do a check is take the derivative. Okay, so what we just did there is we took the antiderivative. So if we take the derivative, we should get what we started with. Okay, so let's take the derivative of this. Now, I'm going to take the derivative of that one. I think it's going to be easier actually to do this one. We won't have to use product rule multiple times. We only have to use it once. So I'm going to let A be, now remember, we've got to use product rule. So this times this. So we're going to use ABBA. So A is going to be e to the x. And B is going to be x squared minus 2x plus 2. All right, so what would A prime be? You guessed it, e to the x. B prime, everybody should know that, is going to be 2x minus 2. And guys, just know, I'm not forgetting about my plus c, I just know when I take the derivative of it, it gives me 0, so I don't really have to worry about that too much. So it's just use product rule. A prime b, which is going to be e to the x, times that whole stuff. Okay. Plus b prime a, which is going to be e to the x times 2x minus 2. And let's just simplify this. It doesn't look like that yet, does it? So we got some simplification to do. So here we go. I'm going to distribute my e to the x through here. So that'll give us x squared e to the x. I'm just rewriting the order. For some reason, I just like to write my x out in front. Okay. So x squared times e to the x. This guy right here would be negative 2x e to the x. And the last term would be plus 2 times e to the x. Now we still got some stuff over here. So e to the x, distribute that through. It's going to be 2x. 2x e to the x. And we got to distribute to the last term as well. So negative 2 e to the x. Okay, so look at what we have here. Look at your like terms. So I see I've got a negative 2x e to the x, and I got a positive 2x e to the x. So those undo each other. Those add to equal 0. They cancel. And same thing here. We got 2e to the x minus 2e to the x. Well, look at that. X squared e to the x. Looks good. Looks like we got it right. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here. May or may not have another video for you, but that's how you integrate by parts, guys. Hopefully it's getting better. Hopefully this is getting easier. Thank you very much.